My sister stayed friends with my cheating ex-wife, so I cut ties. Now she's broke living with our parents and they're demanding I help her. Hi. So I 36 male got divorced from Martha, my ex-wife 34 female 5 years ago. We had been together for almost 6 years and married for 2 before we separated, and the reason behind our divorce was her infidelity. She confessed to me that she had been having an affair with a coworker for a couple of months right after our 2-year anniversary, and that was it for me. She had said that she wanted to give our marriage another chance, and wanted to come clean to me so that we could make it work. But after I found out that she had been cheating, there was no turning back. She moved out because I asked her to, and we got the divorce where I got the house, and she got a second husband. As soon as the divorce was finalized, she got married to the coworker she had been having an affair with a couple of weeks after our divorce finally came through. And then the two of them moved away to Philadelphia. We haven't spoken to each other or seen each other since then, so I'm kind of glad that I did not give her that second chance. The affair, unfortunately, not only ruined my marriage, but also my relationship with my sister, and I'll tell you how. So my younger sister, Nina, 34 female, was pretty close with Martha. They were part of the same friend circle in college, and that's actually how I met her in the first place. But regardless, I had expected Nina to take my side when we were getting divorced in spite of their friendship. Martha had cheated on me and Nina was my sister, so it was natural for me to expect her to understand where I was coming from and be there for me. But when I told my family that I was getting a divorce from Martha because of her infidelity, to my surprise, I found out that Nina already knew about the divorce since Martha had told her about it. Her advice to me was that I should stay with Martha and try to work things out because the girl really wanted to make our marriage work. I was shocked that she would even suggest something like this, and I told her that I was not going to stay with her no matter what. I also expressed that I was very disappointed that she was still choosing to stay in touch with Martha in spite of what she had put me through because I was quite torn up about the divorce and the affair when I found out about it. So I had expected her to cut Martha off. However, we ended up getting into a fight over that because Nina thought that it was rather unreasonable of me to expect something like this out of her because she and Martha had been friends for a really long time. And it was not her fault that we had chosen to get together, get married, and now we were getting divorced. She said that she would like to stay out of all of this and retain her friendship with Martha, as well as continue having a good relationship with me. I don't know if I was right or wrong, but I thought that. It was a very diplomatic stance to take, and I told her that was not going to fly with me. I made it very clear to her at the time that she could either pick Martha and continue to be in touch with her, or she could have a relationship with me, her brother. And I'd obviously expected her to pick me because she and I had been very close growing up. So I was not okay with my sister having any sort of contact with my ex-wife, and I made that very clear to her. To my surprise, she ended up choosing to remain friends with Martha and said that I was being unreasonable. She said that I was being petty and immature, and so she thought that it was better for her to stay around people who actually valued her, and were not going to make her choose between people who were both special to her just to flatter their ego like I was apparently doing. I was very disappointed when that happened. And since then, I have also had no contact with Nina because she really let me down then. She even attended Martha's second marriage with her affair partner, which was the final nail in the coffin. 5 years passed and so far, I've never spoken to her. Our parents have tried their best to get us to reconcile, but both of us are pretty clear on where we stand. I do visit my parents on the holidays and she does as well. We do see each other at other family events like weddings and stuff, but we never speak to each other. I don't even have anything to say to her. I keep hearing from my parents about the important things that go on in her life, the milestones and whatnot. So I know that a couple of years ago, she started her new graphic design business. Until then, she had been a freelancer and had been doing pretty well for herself. So she decided to start her own business with a couple of her other buddies. It's been 3 years, and from what I heard from my parents, they have been doing decent enough. I thought it was good for them, but then a couple of days back, I received a phone call from my parents saying that Nina was in a lot of trouble, and that they needed me to help her out. Now apparently, Nina had not been entirely truthful with them about how well her business was doing, and now she was drowning in debt and had even been evicted from her apartment since she hadn't paid the rent in the last 6 months. So now she had nowhere to go, and unlike her friends, she was too proud to just move back in with her parents, or even ask them to cover her rent. I don't know what to say to that. I just told them that it was really sad for her, and I wish I could help because I thought that's what they wanted me to say, but other than that, I had nothing else in. Then they said that maybe I could help her out by letting her live with me instead. As of now, she has no apartment and has been staying with her boyfriend, but he lives with a roommate. So she can't live with them for longer than a couple of weeks. And 1 week has already passed, so she needs to find a place quickly at least, temporarily, so she can just stay there for a couple of months until she's able to get back on her feet. Now apparently, they had offered to let her stay with them, but she had refused, saying that she was not going to move back in with her parents after living apart from them for so long. They also offered to give her money so she could survive on her own, but she had refused it as well. So now they were reaching out to me to help her out. I made it very clear to them that I was not going to reach out to her since we hadn't spoken in 5 years. And not only would it be awkward, But it was also something that I wasn't interested in doing. I had enough on my plate already. I don't feel the need to take on somebody else's problems as well. They insisted that I was the only person who could talk to her and make sense, and maybe take my help if I offered it because she and I used to be really close. So I reminded them that we used to be close, but we're not exactly on speaking terms anymore. And I tried to explain to them that if she had refused to take help from them, it was very unlikely that she would accept it from me. But my parents were just not ready to hear me out and kept insisting that I should reach out to her and offer her my help. So ultimately, I had to be very firm, but then I told them I was not going to talk to her and that was my final decision. Then they started getting all whiny and manipulative on the call, and said that I was being very selfish, and that I needed to think about my sister instead of being egoistic. Apparently, according to them, my ego had already ruined our relationship once and I was about to let it happen again by not even bothering to talk to her when she was at her lowest. They think that talking to her would make a lot of difference because when we used to be on good terms, she used to idolize me. I could tell that they were trying to manipulate me emotionally, but I'm afraid that it worked. Isha for not reaching out to my sister and offering her my help. Update 1. Okay. So I thought about it and I decided against reaching out to my sister. I did some thinking, spoke to a couple of friends, and read the comments on my post, and everybody was of the same opinion that what my sister had done in the past was incredibly wrong and disrespectful. And so I did not owe it to her to reach out and help her out when she hadn't even asked for it. If she contacts me first and asks me to help her out, that's going to be a different conversation. But just because my parents believe that I should reach out to her by myself doesn't mean that I have to do it. It's been 4 days since I last spoke to them. And this morning, I called them up to let them know about my decision. Every single day since I put up my original post here, they had been calling and texting me to ask me if I had spoken to Nina yet or not. And today, I finally had to tell them to back off because I was not going to do what they had asked me to. When I said that, they got all manipulative and tried to tell me that I was the only person who could solve this. So I made it very clear to them that I didn't care if I was the only person. It was not my problem to deal with, and so I was not going to involve myself in this unnecessarily. And then my parents said that it was a problem that Nina was dealing with, and since she was my sister, it was my problem as well. Apparently, they believe that since we are family, we should all treat each other's problems like our own issues and deal with them accordingly. It's interesting how they said that to me, but they did not have the same opinion back when Nina and I were fighting over what to do with the whole Martha situation. By their logic, if Martha had cheated on me and that was causing havoc in my life, Nina should have immediately cut Martha off because it should have been her problem as well. So it doesn't make sense for them to apply these newfound morals to me, but not to her. I even brought these things up with them to ask why did they not have the same opinion when I was going through something, and they had no answer for that. So instead, they said that I was twisting their words and that I was just looking for an excuse not to help my sister out, and was extremely selfish and disgraceful. That's when they did not have any for themselves or Nina, and were just trying to make me look like the bad guy. So I told them that I was fine with doing selfish and disgraceful things, but for now I had made up my mind and told them to stop bothering me. I thought that it would be the end of the conversation and I was about to hang up as well, but then my mother said something and that really pissed me off. She said that she had always known that I had a massive ego, and that was probably a failing in their own parenting skills. But she had never expected me to turn out to be so heartless and sad, and maybe Nina was right for choosing Martha over me. Everybody knows that that's my sore spot, and I really don't like people bringing that up. So I knew that she had chosen to bring it up on purpose because she wanted to hurt me by what she said and she had succeeded. It really pissed me off and I was very upset when I heard that, so I immediately forgot about hanging up and confronted her about what she had said. I literally yelled at her because I had lost my temper, and said that she had no right to say things like that when she knew very well that what had happened with Martha and Nina was not right. There was just no justification for it, and she tried to defend herself by saying that she knew that what Nina had done back then was wrong. But judging by the way I was acting now, she was forced to think that maybe it was the right choice to make in the long run because clearly I was too selfish to think about anybody but myself. It was so frustrating to even have that conversation with her because they were so blind and idiotic, but I was so angry at that moment that I didn't even realize it was pointless to argue with them. I just wanted to get all the anger out of my system and keep yelling at them until they admitted that they were wrong for what they had said. So we kept arguing for almost 15 minutes. My parents kept calling me selfish, and I said that they were disrespectful and only cared about my sister, but not my feelings. At the end of the argument, I just told them that I never wanted to speak to them or hear from them ever again and I was done. Then I finally hung up and I blocked their phone numbers immediately. Since then, I've been trying to calm down, but it's very difficult because I've been so riled up since the conversation. I texted a couple of my friends to vent about my feelings and they said that I was right to block them, and that if they try to contact me again, I should just not respond to them because they have made their priorities very clear and I don't need to entertain any of this anymore. I have a life of my own, problems of my own, so I should just focus on that. And I guess I'm going to do that now. I have given enough time and energy to these people, way more than they deserve. Update 2. So it's been a week since I blocked my parents, and since then we have not had any contact. I assumed that they would quit and not bother me anymore after I had blocked them, and made it so clear to them that I was not going to give them what they wanted. But today, after I came back home from work, I saw that my parents had pulled up to my house and were waiting outside. I'd had a long day at work and had been swamped, so I was pretty exhausted. And I was in no mood to deal with any of this. So as soon as I pulled up to the front of my house, I honked twice, and I told them to get out of here, or I'd call the cops on them for trespassing. Instead of leaving, they came up to my car and said that they wanted to speak to me, and they were really not in the mood to fight with me right now. So I just needed to give them some time and come out instead of acting like this. I was exhausted. I really was not in the mood to discuss anything to do with Nina right now, so I really wanted them to leave. And I promised that I would unblock them and speak to them later, but right now I needed my space and time. But then they told me that Nina had moved back in with them because right now she had no choice. Her boyfriend had made it very clear that he could not let her stay with him for more than 2 weeks, and 2 weeks had already passed. So she had tried to speak to him and get him to extend it, but he told her that his roommates were not fine with this. So she needed to leave since he had made a promise to them that he would not let her live with them for more than 2 weeks, and this was only temporary. But after that, if she continued to stay with him, she would have to split the rent and cost of everything else with them since he couldn't just allow her to live with them for free just because she was his girlfriend. And they got into a fight over that because Nina thought that he was being unreasonable and that he should have been more considerate about her position since she was having to shut down her business and did not have a source of income right now. So now she can't even go back there anymore. Again, it was sad, but it had nothing to do with me, so I told my parents that I was still not going to talk to her and let her live with me if that's what they were here for. So they told me that that's not why they were here. They were here to actually ask me for financial help because now that Nina had moved back in with them, they were going to have to cover the cost of everything. And both of them were retired, so though they couldn't afford to exactly support her without worrying about their own future. And they do not want to overexert themselves, so they were asking me to help them out financially. They said that I wouldn't even have to speak to Nina. I just had to give some money to them for the next couple of months until Nina was able to get back on her feet. This time they expected me to agree without much of a fuss since they said that they had done a lot for me over the years, and it raised me to be capable enough to do well for myself right now. So I owed it to them to help them out when they were asking for it. I did not want to say anything. So I said that I had to think about it and let them know because right then, I was very tired from work, and I was not going to make a decision that very moment. I thought it was pretty reasonable to ask for some time to think because what they were asking for me was a big deal. For starters, I didn't even know what kind of amount I would have to send every month. And on top of that, there was no telling when or even if Nina would be able to get back on her own 2 feet soon enough. So I needed to think about this before I made any commitment, and I needed time for that. But instead of giving me that time and respecting what I had said, they decided to start pressuring me right there. I was literally sitting in the car, and they kept saying that I had to do this. I owed it to them and stuff, and that was pissing me off more and more. So I got out of my car, and I told them that I had had enough of their BS, and they had to clear out or I would really call the cops. They thought that I was bluffing and said that they knew I was not going to do anything of the sort. So I told them not to test me, and I gave them one final warning, but even then they did not leave. So I whipped my phone out and called the cops like I said I would. I did it right in front of them and the look of shock on their faces was worth seeing. Then they were so stupid that instead of just leaving and saving themselves, they decided to stand there and argue with me until the cops came and had to drag them off. Anyway, it's over now and I'm keeping them blocked. I have also spoken to my lawyer and I think that we are going to have to file for a restraining order against them because things are getting out of hand, and I can't deal with this again and again. Update 3. Hi. So a couple of days back, I had my parents show up at my house, and I said that I was going to file for a restraining order. Yesterday, I finally spoke to my lawyer and we decided that we were going to go ahead with it. And today, we filed the petition. I honestly hope that I'm able to get the protective order against them because what they've been doing is getting out of hand. I had blocked them quite some time ago, so they couldn't exactly contact me normally. And that's why I guess they decided to harass me in other ways. I don't exactly know how they managed to do it. They probably paid somebody or something. But ever since I called the cops on them, things have been going pretty weirdly. That day itself, nothing really happened. But the next day, I started receiving calls from a bunch of numbers, and I answered the phone calls a couple of times at first, but as soon as I could pick up the phone, they would hang up from the other end. And so I blocked the phone number, but then the same thing started happening with other numbers. And eventually, I decided not to answer any calls from numbers that I did not recognize because it was getting really weird and creepy. As if that was not bad enough, I started receiving messages from these numbers as well saying that I would have to face the consequences of what I had done, and that my parents were never going to forgive me. There was also a lot of name calling involved where I was being addressed as a selfish brat and whatnot, and some curse words that I will not be repeating here since they were just that bad. I know for a fact that it's my parents behind this, and that was all the more reason for me to go to my lawyer and file for a restraining order because I don't think that any of this is normal. After this, I don't think they should expect any sort of help from me at all. I've been trying to respect the fact that we were family and was not taking any sort of action against them earlier, but now I don't think I need to care about them since they clearly don't care about my mental health or well-being. It's just very disappointing since they know that I've been through a lot in the past, what with my divorce from Martha. And for a couple of years after that, I was not doing particularly well in my career either. So I've had my fair share of problems. And now when I'm finally doing well, it seems like they can't stand it and want to pull me down. I can't imagine claiming to love your child and acting like this, but I guess they don't really love me and it's fine. I have accepted that and it doesn't matter to me. Update 4. So it's been a couple of weeks since my last update and long story short, I managed to get a restraining order against my parents. There was a lot of fighting, but I did get it. I'm really glad about it because from what I know, Nina is no longer living with them because of how psychotic they have been acting. I was pretty busy with work since I've just taken on a new project, so I did not have time to post any new updates. Anyway, after my parents were served, they could not contact me because it would be too dicey, especially after everything that they had already done. So I guess they decided to talk to Nina about it, and she was the one who contacted me. I had never blocked her. I didn't feel the need to because after we stopped speaking to each other, I didn't think that either of us would reach out. So there was no point in blocking each other. Also, I just kind of forgot about it. Anyway, she messaged me saying that she was really disappointed that I had taken such an extreme step against our parents after everything that they had done for us. It was the same old routine. She reminded me that they had raised us to be the people that we are now and we should be grateful to them. But I was being insolent and disrespectful. I got very pissed off when I read that message because it was just so pretentious. And I told her that it was obviously easier for her to say that since they were going above and beyond in their attempts to help her out. I guess she also wanted to have a go at me and call me selfish and entitled for not helping her out with the money that she required. And to that message, she replied saying that she had never asked me to help her out, and she would never even expect it from me because I was really that selfish. So I told her that she did not need to ask me for it because our parents were doing all the talking on her behalf already. So if she wanted somebody to blame for this situation, she could just look in the mirror. And I guess she was not aware of the fact that our parents had been hounding me to help her out for so long because when I sent that message she immediately called me up. And I answered the phone because I really just wanted to talk about this and get it over with. So she asked me what I was talking about because she did not recall telling our parents that she wanted any sort of help. I told her about everything that had happened, and she hung up abruptly as soon as I was done. I sort of knew that Nina probably wouldn't have known how our parents had been hounding me and disturbing me all this while. So I decided to bring it up with her on purpose, and after that I did not hear back from her. But I heard from other people in the family that apparently Nina had moved out of the house and was now living with a friend of hers instead of her parents because she had realized that our parents had been asking me to help them with money so they could help her out. And initially, they had even been asking me to reach out to her and offer her my help, which clearly meant that they thought she was incapable of handling the situation on her own. And apparently, she believed that this was an attack on her and her capabilities. And so they got into a really nasty fight. How exactly did my relatives find out about this? Obviously, my parents were the ones who had been crying about how I had not only ruined my relationship with everybody around me, but now I had gone out of my way to speak out of turn and managed to brainwash my sister against them as well. So a couple of my family members who had been contacted by my parents came to me and said that what I was doing was very wrong, so I decided to make this known to them as well. And after everybody knew the real and whole story, including what my parents had done to me, which had warranted these actions from my end, they seemed to realize that maybe I was not in the wrong and apologized to me for attacking me without knowing the full truth. So now basically nobody from the family is speaking to my parents and they have kind of been ostracized by everyone. I can't say that they don't deserve it because after everything that my parents have put me through, I definitely think that this is exactly what needed to happen. Nobody speaks to them anymore, and I'm sure that they blame me for it. But unfortunately, because of the restraining order, they can't even do anything about it. But that does not mean that Nina and I are suddenly on good terms again. We are still no contact with each other, and that's the way it's going to be until she realizes how she had screwed up in the past. But given her attitude towards life, I highly doubt that it's going to happen anytime soon. She's always going to be too proud and invested to admit her own mistakes, and that's just like our parents. It's so typical, but whatever, as long as my life is going well, I don't need to bother myself with any of this now. I'm just going to focus on my new projects and living well, and that's it.